We continue our conversation on PARCC and take a little bit of a different angle. Kachmar is a reporter at the Asbury Park Press. She's been, you said, for the last few weeks, you've been covering PARCC. But you specifically are doing a story now on how poor children may be left behind in all of the PARCC testing. Explain that.
Yes, well, 38% of New Jersey's 1.4 million students are on free and reduced lunch. So what I did was I looked at the 11th grade test data, and I looked at data from other grades too. And there's still a huge achievement gap. And I talked to a lot of experts, and a lot of experts don't think that that Common Core or PARCC is going to help close those gaps.
You know, and we have to make that relation between Common Core and PARCC. PARCC basically tests the Common Core curriculum.
Yes.
And so what are the reasons why, if Common Core is supposed to be a standardized test for everybody, why is it that poor students or students mostly in urban areas? Not
necessarily. I mean, yes, not necessarily though. I mean, there are poor students in, you know, most districts in New Jersey. But,
so it has nothing to do with the district or the area. It really does have to do with economic standing more than anything else.
Yes.
And why are they falling behind in Common Core or the PARCC testing?
Well, we don't really know yet because obviously PARCC testing hasn't started yet. But I think part of that is really controversial because some people with different schools of thought will say, you know, students can't learn at the same pace as everyone else if they're dealing with stress or if they're hungry or if they are unhealthy or if they have to deal with abuse or, you know, if their parents are working late and they, you know, they don't have the sort of, you know, the sort of like safe feeling that other kids who have their parents home all the time may have.
So your assumptions are made, or your reporting has been done on standardized testing, not necessarily PARCC. Because PARCC has been used in experimental stage, they just haven't released the figures. So, so you're making some assumptions that PARCC would be exactly the same.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been testing kids with standardized tests for decades now, and you know, there's always the achievement gap. Nothing's really changed that ever, and I'm neutral personally, but a lot of experts don't see how a new test or a new set of standards is going to address any of those problems. And some people will say it's totally separate, you know, it's up to the district to decide how they want to close those gaps. And that's true too, but it just seems like there's a huge focus on this test and the fact that parents are upset that teachers are just teaching to the test and that, you know, it's going to be more difficult, it's going to stress kids out. And, you know, on the other hand, no one's really talking about the kids who are poor and who are underachieving in these districts.
And how do you make it work for them? And the people that you spoke with, do they have solutions for that?
Well, there's one district in Monmouth County, Keansburg, and they've sort of taken a different approach. They're trying to teach to the whole child, which is sort of like acknowledging and addressing these problems that they have at home. In the high school, they started school an hour later so that kids who had to babysit or had to work weren't tired during the day, and they saw drastic changes. And they just, you know, if kids are absent all the time, they assign a teacher to say, hey, you know, we missed you in school. Like, it's just small things like changing the school culture and making kids feel safe and maybe feeding them breakfast or, you know, just making kids feel like they can be safe at school and so maybe they can learn better. And they've seen significant results. I think about 22% of high school seniors got into college in 2011 from Keansburg, and now that number is almost 80%.
Kachmar, thank you very much for being here today. When we come back, we are going to talk to one of the most famous hecklers in the world. You remember him. He's the guy that took on Chris Christie, and Chris Christie told him to sit down and shut up. We're going to ask him to talk about what he's doing now.